Karachay-Cherkessia, blessed and wonderful land. Every year, thousands of tourists, guests and natives travel across its roads. Some of them are looking to earn the daily bread. Some are trying to escape the everyday routine. Silence and peace of the mountains and gorges invite a man where he can breathe freely and easily and forget all the problems of our hurried and chaotic being. Very few people think about fate, the ancient history, or culture of peoples living here, and no special efforts need to be made in order to meet them. You will only need to stop your car and to leave the highway for some 100 meters. Ruins of fortresses and piercing eyes of tombs will carry you into depths of dark and mysterious ages. History carved in stone. We begin our story about the unique historical and cultural heritage of Karachay-Cherkessia from its east borders. This is Kislovodsk, one of the main Russian resorts in Stavropolsky region. Not far from Kislovodsk, there is famous Koltso Gora, means ring mountain. It has its name thanks to a round hole like a ring. They say this hole appeared due to water and wind impact onto the solid rock. But the ring is man-made. Wind and water erosion only enlarged its inner diameter, as well as the entry holes of some rocky tombs, turning them into grots. Archaeologists believe that rocky tombs specific for Alan's manner of burying. Alan's founded early Middle Ages state on the territory of the North Caucasus in the 10th century. It was the first state on the territory of the modern Russian Federation. The state covered extensive lands from Luba River on the west till Sunja River on the east, with all its different peoples and tribes. The population of Kislovodskaya Hollow, the economic dominant of Alan's state on the Silk Road, was not less than nowadays. Thousands of years ago, people carried on trade, bred sheep, crafts prospered here. Not far from Kislovodskaya Hollow, there is an ancient Karachay mountain village, Skhavat. You can still see here interesting samples of the early Middle Ages. Today, the ancient town of Skhavat is forsaken by God and man. It has never recovered from barbarous deportation of the Karachay people in 1943. Present-day Hassaud presents one pitiful sight. Only about 50 people live here now. True lords of the valley are swinging ripe dog rows on the slopes. Others are soaring into the sky and making sacred fly over fortresses' ruins and mournful tombs. Tombs are dated from the 8th through the 10th centuries. All of them are cut high in the rocky brows and always facing the south. Looking at these ancient tombs, one can think that death is the only constant in this world. Caves are empty. They saw hundreds of generations of robbers within thousands of years. but we found several bones in one of the caves. We are the representatives of the third millennium, and we consider ourselves being free from the influence of the mysticism. But what about our video equipment which failed near one of the tombs? Is it only a coincidence or the tomb's reaction to our invasion? We can't tell for sure. Neither can we tell who or what made the stonemasons deal with such hard and life-threatening matter as solid rock cutting and tombs arrangement. Scientists date other forms of the last earth house arrangement by those centuries as well. Here are some stone boxes or cases typical for the entire North Caucasus. Archaeologists agree that stone boxes were already used as graves in the second millennium before Christ, long before the Alans came. Alans saved that tradition. All these underground, semi-basement, ground-based graves also belong to Alans. They have one common feature. All of them were made of earth. But how can we explain the origin of these graves? They had been destroyed by the wind and years, but even now they make an unforgettable impression. This impression even strengthens when you see Queen Tamara's funeral complex, the one situated near Karachaevsk town. It is easy to see that entry holes were closed by stone plates. There is one very interesting detail. Most of the graves opened into each other by circular holes, as if those who left this world for the world of stone were in need of some companionship. The spiritual world of our ancestors was dark, mysterious, and very far from our understanding today. And it found its last rest in tombs reminding us tiny houses. This is Chuana, the Heaven Temple of Narts, a unique monument created by nature near the town of Karachaevsk. Narts of Karachay-Balkar saga were legendary heroes whose mission was to save the earth from evil impurity. Here was one of the main sacrariums. One of the saga's heroes was buried near the rock. Cold-minded and haughty hero Soslan, or Sosruko, the son of stone, son of granite. Narts buried him here, but Stones' son hadn't fallen apart into dust. Having arisen from ashes, he became a stone column. Such was the will of the supreme god, Peyri, the god of sky. We can see Smith Debet's rocks from here. That mythical hero came down from the sky to beat out different tools for people and armory for Narts to fight with evil beasts, Amigans. Nobody knew iron before Debet came around. He was the only one who could find ore, recover it, and melt into iron. His mines were in Balkaria's and Karachay's mountains. Here are the holes of one of them. immortal Tibet had been working for several centuries until Nardes defeated all the emigrants. Having carried out his mission, the legendary smith built a winged cart and left on it for heavens. Falling stars at night sky are blazes from Tibet's anvil. Alans used these holes as communal burial. You can still see here bones of their deceased. But if you abstract yourself from all these myths and legends, this archaeological item is supremely interesting. Who and what made this ring in the basalt wall? What is the purpose of the taper holes on the domes of this cave? How come that we could find not common for the North Caucasus Iceland spar in solid rock? Missionaries from friendly Byzantium couldn't set aside that sacred place during their centuries-long efforts to turn Alans into Christian faith. At the first quarter of the 10th century, they raised this temple on Chuana's shoulder. It is simple and grand. This temple is one of 5 temples that survived from the first quarter of the 10th century along the Transcaucasian route of the Silk Road. There's the second temple on the way to Kluhorsky Pass. 1,000 years ago, numerous caravans plodded along the pass towards Sevastopol, modern Sukhumi. From Sevastopol, merchants reached to Trebizond and Constantinople by sea. At the 6th and 7th centuries, Iran waged a long war in order to monopolize sales markets of Byzantium, the main silks consumer and supplier to the Western Europe. At the 8th century, the wars of Arab Caliphate began. So merchants chose another way, passing the Caspian Sea in the north, then to Volga River Delta towards Khazar town Adil. From here, trade routes spread along the North Caucasus steppes and foothills. After Khazar Khaganate's eclipse, Alans based their own state in the second part of the 10th century. That state gathered power and force in the 10th and 11th centuries. From that time, Alans began to control the main caravan tracks. Byzantium was interested in establishing allied relations with Alania. The Greeks tried to turn Alans into Christianity in order to strengthen the alliance. Long missionary policy gave certain results. Alans embraced Christianity. This temple is a pearl of early Middle Ages architecture. It was built here instead of Alans' pagan sanctuary. This is the only temple of the early 10th century which kept fragments of the original frescoes and remains of the paint layer. Near the temple, there is a small masterpiece, a mausoleum. Sentinsky Temple and mausoleum are well in accord with landscape that surrounds it, and thanks to their form's lightness, it seems that the temple and the mausoleum are levitating above Teberda River. The political and administrative center of Alans' state was in Nizhny Arkhis. There are menhirs on the way to Nizhny Arkiz. Nobody knows for sure their true purpose. Maybe they were used as guideboards. There is a forested steppe slope above the road. It is the main necropolis of the Alans' capital. A part of the slope was cut away during road construction, and some typical graves of Alans, stone cases, were exposed. At the end of the 19th century, Dmitry Strukov, a member of the Moscow Archaeological Society, was sent here. Strukov found more than 100 urban buildings which were arranged in squares. A century passed and only forested and covered with sod ruins remain. A monastery was founded here in 1889 by the decision of the Holy Synod. Stones of urban houses were used for monastery premises. We believe that this small temple was used as a family chapel. It is rather small and holds very few people, but nevertheless, nowadays, it is the most ancient functional temple on the territory of Russia, which was founded long before Church split into Catholic and Orthodox. There is a cathedral with a conventional necropolis for nobles and clergy. The town's cathedral was built in respect with all Byzantine church architecture requirements. But at the end of the 19th century, monks changed its style. They built 4 churches in the north and south sides and coated remains of frescoes by a thick layer of parquet. But even without frescoes, temple's inside makes an unforgettable impression by its light forms. The North Temple is situated 880 meters away from the Middle Temple near the Metropolitan's village. This village was destroyed long ago, but we can still see Alans' Eparchy Cathedral in its original form and state thanks to the restorers. The temples of Nizhny Arkiz are the most studied part of Alans' state capital construction, but other objects are full of mystery. These are the walls of the unique object which has the form of a circle. Walls are 2 meters thick in a diameter is 88 meters. Researchers think that this object had more scientific purpose than the sacral. Archaeologists' current hypothesis is that this is a solar calendar which helped Alans to determine seeding time, time of cattle stripping, dates of religious events, and so on. The stones with counting tables and so-called cup-marked stones are the proof for this hypothesis. 1,000 years later, Astrophysical Observatory was built not far from here. The staff of this observatory believes that these so-called cup-marked stones are a unique map of the starry sky. There is a statue of a warrior in the west of the town. Its size is amazing. It is made from 6 meters stone. Its Europoid features of a gloomy warrior hardened in stone 1200 years ago. This statue is unique. There are no other giant warriors like this in the North Caucasus. This statue was brought here from Bichasin, a high mountain tableland near the foot of the Elbrus mountain, the land of burial hills, statues, and menhirs. We are traveling to a Kiafar site, Alans' monarch's residence. A chronicler of the 10th century wrote about the Alans' monarch that he was very powerful, had an army of 30,000 riders, and had resting places. Apparently, Kiafar site was one of such places. But the size of the site, the walls as remains, its large necropolis suggest that Alans' monarchs separated from clergy as it became authoritative and powerful. There are lots of such examples in the history. Near the entrance into the site, we can see the huge stone plates with crosses cut into them. It is very unlikely that they can relate to Christianity, just like this plate with enigmatic petroglyphs which are combined into unsolved magic zoologic plot. There is another unique object a little further. This is a so-called sanctuary on a rock's top. Rather well-preserved steps lead to it. There are 2 plates on the platform. There are hardly legible and still unsolved runic inscriptions. A cup mark, a rectangular drawing on one of them. Archaeologists call it a Babylon. There are other runic inscriptions under our feet, and they are not indented, but prominent. There are several such Babylons here in different places, but their meanings are as unclear as runic inscriptions' meanings. The second plate was raised, God knows how, and short stands were put under it. Top of this table is blank. We think it's an altar. That means that these Babylons, crosses, runic inscriptions, dugout graves, and this sacred complex itself, all of this belongs to one time, and all of them were created at the pre-Christian era. We are going to a vallum by hardly visible street. There are remains of dwellings, small churches, and graves in the city line. Here, at last vallums remains, which spread from the north to the south. Stones are well matched to each other in the traditional for Alans manner. But these stones would never tell us neither about the workers or about those whose orders these workers followed. Just like nothing can be learned from all these destroyed mausoleums that we can find here. This mausoleum was built outside the city line. It was still adjoined to the vellum. These tombs are made from the 3 meters frames of stone blocks. The exterior of almost all of these mausoleums was decorated by a theme or wavy ornaments, but today all of them are in urgent need of restoration. It is difficult to overestimate the value of Kiafar mausoleums as well as that of the most memorials belonging to Alans. There are a lot of ground-based tombs in the world, like the mausoleum of Kür Achaemenid, for example, or mausoleums of the 20th century, but none of them are like the Kiafar mausoleums, and that's what makes them unique. The distant connection of these mausoleums with Black Sea coast's dolmens megaliths is obvious, but the functional purpose of dolmens is not known. The tradition of burying in mausoleums began in the North Caucasus in the early Middle Ages and lasted until late Middle Ages. These are the mausoleums of Dukes Krimshamkalos in Kartjurt, which were built in the 17th century. The tradition of large tomb building by this time in history was disappearing. Instead of ornaments, a slightly worked out stone was used, which was whitened inside and out. In the 13th century, Alan's estate came to an end of its more than 300 years of existence. Numerous towers of warring with each other feudal lords confirm the words of chroniclers that in Alania there were as many monarchs as gorges. Nobody obeyed no one. Those wars arose due to the world's economic dominance crash. In the year of 1204, during one of the Crusades, the knights of the Western Europe occupied and destroyed Constantinople. In China, the civil wars began. Caravans ceased traveling through the North Caucasus. These broke the economic backbone of Alania. In the year of 1239, the Mongols ravaged the declining state and Alania was occupied by Gold Orda. In 1396, Tamerlan put an end to Alan's state existence. Part of the people was slaughtered, part was abducted, and others remained lost and roaming, as chroniclers said. Very small number of Alans, Karachais, Balkars, Digors, escaped to the hard-to-reach gorges at the foot of the Great Caucasus mountain range. Tamerlan went away leaving valleys and slopes of human bones. Nothing remained from Alan's towns. We don't even know their names. It was noticed long ago that buildings lacking human warmth fall to the ruins faster. There, where once men were preparing themselves for field labor, where women were giving birth to children and baking their bread, now the wild grass and trees grow. Everything turns to dust in this vain world. But the ruins, which survived centuries, are not the only evidence of vanity of this world. They also tell us exciting and captivating stories about the history and culture of Alans, who managed to unite different tribes and peoples. It is our responsibility not only to study, but also try our best and save all these unique and significant historical sites which were created by our ancient ancestors with love and care.